It's barely 3 months to Ghana's presidential and parliamentary elections. Now, although over the years the two dominant parties, the NPP and NDC, have shared the spoils of the polls, minority parties as well as independent candidates remain adamant to upset the status quo and stake their claims. This evening, policy think tank IMANI Africa are holding a debate for the independent candidates to, as it were, present their policies to the electorate. Ghana Election Desk provides you the full events as it unfolds. Stay with us.
It is the minority political parties and independent candidates presidential debate where 6 persons seeking to lead this country come 7th January 2021 would be answering questions that you have put together, which our moderators would be asking them. Thank you very, very much for joining us. And we're coming to you live from the auditorium of the University of Professional Studies here in Accra. My name is Winston Amwa, and I'll be, like John the Baptist, preparing the way for your moderators to take over. Shall we now welcome, with a round of applause, Professor Charles Barner, who is Pro-Vice Chancellor of the University of Professional Studies, Accra, to give us a welcome note.
And welcome to the campus of the University of Professional Studies, Accra. We are delighted to welcome you here this evening for what promises to be a lively discussion and debate. The beauty of debates have always been the ability of good ideas to thrive and flourish, regardless the deliverer of those ideas. And for all participants to present their opposing viewpoints respectfully, allowing our young democracy to thrive. As independent candidates and minority parties, this is one of the rarest opportunities to connect with the large of Ghanaian voters with a positive message that might make a difference in this ultra-modern auditorium of UPSA, and we are proud to host you here. As a young democracy, opportunities like this presidential debate for independent candidates can only bode well for Ghana's democratic future. Perhaps independent candidates and minority parties are not bound by the governing of any political party agenda. As independent candidates, your focus will be to design platforms to appeal to the concerns of the public and to encourage voters to support your bid. However, over time, we have observed that minority parties and independent candidates strategize on the mantra that they are needed in the middle to pull views together, compromise, and resolve disagreement between maybe MPP and NDC, and to get an outcome that is best at the interests of the country. I want to indicate that this strategy is outmoded, and it requires fine-tuning for a new strategy for winning ways. In other words, what I'm indicating here is that it is time for independent candidates and minority parties to pull themselves together to hold the balance of power in the political structure of this country so that we will put some sanity into the governance of this country in the area of finance and administration. And this takes me to recent images and utterances of our youth behaving in ways unbecoming of who we thought our Ghanaian youth were and how we expected them to behave. Though a lot of people condemn the actions, our shock stemmed from the fact that we all believe that schools are the preferred environment to transform productive and useful citizens of any nation. While identifying the sources of leakages of such behavior to our youth, it is now time for society to look at the level of responsibility from all political parties in this country. I know our aim to participate in the management of public affairs by presenting yourselves as candidates to free and democratic elections. I also believe that you have pledged to be more decorous in your language and your communication with one another as the nation watches tonight. I have no doubt that each of the candidates and the parties here will rise to the occasion and begin a trend of which we all will be proud and which our youth will emulate. To IMANI, I say congratulations for organizing what is hopefully the first of many such events for independent candidates and political parties in this country. Welcome to UPSC. Arguably, this is the most resourced ultramodern auditorium in this country and perhaps West Africa. You're always welcome. We are willing to do business with you, and we thank you for your business. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you very, very much, Professor Charles Bano. We certainly would come back because tonight we have 6 independent candidates, and as I started by saying, it is the minority parties and independent candidates debate. So we'll come back again. I'm sure I see Franklin Kujo nodding when it's time for the minority political parties. Once again, thank you. And like you stated, I'm certainly sure that the candidates, 6 of them, would rise up to the occasion. Shall we now welcome Mr. Kofi Bento, who is Vice President of IMANI, to give us some brief remarks.
It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for honoring our invitation. IMANI is glad to host this particular forum. Our name says policy and education. We make it a point to try and put out as much information as possible, learn as many things as possible, and generally improve the level of discourse in this democracy. One of the things we also try to do is actually go to places or deal with issues which are always important, but sometimes not interesting enough or too difficult, too complex for people. So we take the time to go through that, break it down, and hopefully improve the discourse in our democracy. It is in this spirit that we are holding this particular forum, and we are very grateful to Joy FM for partnering with us. We are hoping that we will find gems. We will find some nice, beautiful, special ideas that we may have missed from the ideas that these gentlemen will present here. Indeed, in our history, there have been some very good ideas that the major parties have adopted, which originally came from independent candidates. And I also believe that you don't learn much by listening only to people who share your ideas. You fine-tune your own ideas when you allow it to be challenged, when you go outside the spaces where people agree with you and listen to other views. That is how you improve the discourse and you learn more than you already know. So tonight is about throwing out ideas and learning new things. It's about going beyond the echo chamber where we only hear what we've been hearing all the time. And hopefully the independent candidates will spice up our political discourse. We are very happy to be here and we look forward to a good evening.
All right, so we're certainly waiting, and we're getting to that moment that all of you are waiting for, when the 6 candidates will get up here and answer the questions that you have given to us to be asked. But before we get to that segment, let's now invite Franklin Kujo, who is president of IMANI, for his brief remarks.
Good evening. I'm already nervous, by the way, as if I'm part of the debate. Well, since IMANI began demanding the business plans of political parties in 2008, we knew running a country was not necessarily synonymous with running a private enterprise. However, we have since realized that after 3 major elections, that is not sufficient for it is not sufficient for a political party to cost the individual initiatives they are proposing, something most of them never bother to do anyway. And that we think they must produce a complete pro forma budget which demonstrates what the opportunity cost for each initiative will be by showing the source of budgetary receipts alongside the inventory of expenses. We think that a manifesto without such a pro forma budget cannot suffice as a proper statement of intent. However, this evening is not to adore manifestos. This evening, our compatriot independent candidates will be the first to be subjected to questions that seek to elicit, at the very least, responses that hopefully resonate with being business ready in order to offer a different version of reality we have been used to.
To be answered in turns, the moderators may pose a follow-up question to allow a candidate provide clarity on a response given. The order of each round of answering will alternate to allow for a fair balance. At the end of each round of question, the moderator will pause to allow for rebuttals. There will be no breaks during the debate. Each candidate will have 1 minute to make an opening statement and another minute for closing statements. The allotted time to answer a substantive question is 60 seconds, while 30 seconds is allowed for each rebuttal. A ring from a bell will indicate when a candidate has exhausted the time due and will display the time as it counts down on the big screens here in the auditorium as well. The order of arrangement of the candidates, as you have heard MFR Power announce, was determined based on the transparent balloting process in which all the candidates participated. Here is the code of conduct for tonight. Candidates are expected to show respect to their opponents, the moderators, and of course, the audience. Audience are expected to remain silent during the debate. And if I said you lost your chance if you didn't do it at the beginning, that's the last time it will ever happen. Audience are specifically discouraged from applause or jeer. Those are the rules for tonight's debate. I will now invite our first candidate who is joining us via Zoom, if he's with us via Zoom, to start us off with his 1 minute opening remark. And I'm talking about
Dr. Thomas Cisse joining us via Zoom. You have 60 seconds to give us your opening remark. Ready, so we'll go with you, Mr. Samuel Ofori Ampofo, with your 60 seconds. Give us your opening remarks, sir.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Samuel Ofori Ampofo. I am from Esiom in the Eastern region and Kubasi in the Ashanti region. I decided to run for the highest office of the presidency of Ghana because I believe in myself. Now I believe that I have the revolutionary capacity to transform the hopelessness in this country and make this country a better place for generations unborn. That is why I stand before you today, and I sincerely believe I will be able to convince you of all that I have in me, so that in the end, come 2020, if I am the winner and to lead these gentlemen over here, you guys will vote for me massively so that we can take over the hopelessness of this country from NDC and MPP. Thank you very much.
Well, we'll go to Mr. Kofi Kranting. How you got to the podium today will be interrogated later on as we go on. But your opening remarks at this point, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you. Okay. So, yes, indeed, my name is Kofi Kranting, and I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm an entrepreneur, and I'm an advocate. I have a background in engineering. I've worked in the financial capital of the world, Wall Street. I have come to the understanding, and I'm sure everybody here will agree with me, if you were to take all Ghana's problems and you were to lump it together, you would know one thing for a fact, that if we took an approach of a science-based, data-driven, human-centered consciousness to leadership, we will solve all our problems. And that's why I'm running for president, because I know with that track record, with my background, we're going to be able to go straight to the point. No need for meetings, no need for commissions, no need for any engagements. Straight to the point, present me with the problems, let's look at the facts, let's solve the problem, let's get Ghana moving. And that's why we're here tonight. I'm thankful that you would engage us today here tonight.
Mr. Carl Ebo Morgan, your 10, you have 60 seconds, sir.
My name is Carl Ebo Morgan. I'm from the Central region, and I'm a political psychologist, so to speak. I've studied, I'm not a qualified doctor or something, but that's what I've done all my life. Currently, I'm a consultant in management and investment in Ghana. I've achieved so much in this field, but at this point of time, the country is at crossroads that I said earlier, and we need to change these establishment parties that have caused all our woes. They have come to the end of their wits. They have no new ideas. They just kept recycling what they presented in 1992. I have not seen any new ideas. I'm here to present an alternative, which I think you will all be happy with me, and Ghanaians will give me the nod to lead the country come 2021. Thank you so much.
Nipayede Osumte, your turn.
Hello, my name is Onipayede Osumte. I was born at Asisewa in the eastern region of Ghana. I'm a GSS2 dropout. I know most of you may wonder my business here as a GSS2 dropout. But let me tell you one thing. Ghana here, it seems most of us, we always go to school to learn how we can be able to speak the grammar, and after we successfully learning how we can be able to speak it well, we go back to the Englishman to come to plead with him to come and help us fix our economy. I think it is time we listen to some of us that we can be able to offer an alternative to fix the economy. That is why I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Mario Kofi Gan, your turn.
Good evening. My name is Mario Kofi Gan. I'm a chartered accountant, a development expert, and a lecturer. Every Ghanaian watching this today has one of the biggest decisions to make. And that decision is to choose someone other than the NDC and the NPP to be able to lead this country to a position where we can have one that works for all of us, not just a few. My intention here today is to be the one that leads this country in that regard. It is a decision we are all going to have to make, not just for ourselves, but for generations yet unborn. May God help us in that decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We join Dr. Thomas Vazum at this point. Your 60 seconds starts now. You have to unmute yourself, sir. We'll try and rectify the connection to Dr. Tom Asise. You have to unmute your microphone so we can hear you, Vazum. We'll try again. It appears the connection is not working to Dr. Thomas Asise. We'll rectify that.
We will move on to our first substantive question, and I will start with Mr. Samuel Ofori Ampofo at podium 2. And question: the 1992 Constitution gives enormous powers of appointment to the president. Over the years, successive governments have been plagued with what has now come to be known as family and friends government. How would you fashion out a governance system that avoids nepotism in favor of merit and inclusion? Mr. Ampo.
Thank you very much. Yes, we all know that since 1992, we've had the problem of the presidency having all the executive powers to control every sector of the economy. The president has all the powers to appoint more than 4,000 executives, and that has never been the right thing for Ghana. And if I am given the nod, I am going to run this country with minimum governance. and save as much resources and funds as much as we can for our national development, so that we will never again go under the dictates of the IMF, borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. Never again under my leadership.
Mr. Kofi Koranteng, how would you fashion out a governance system that avoids nepotism in favor of merit and inclusion? Mr. Kofi Koranteng.
Oh, I'm sorry. Say it again.
How would you fashion out, same question, how would you fashion out a governance system that avoids nepotism in favor of merit and inclusion?
Okay, so our system of bringing people in is absolutely wrong, Evans. The first thing we need to do, we need to employ a director of public prosecutions, okay? Work directly with the Attorney General's office so they could oversee all crimes, everything in terms of process with the country. We need to employ also a public service commission who does the hiring of the police commissioner, hiring of the Auditor General, and also the hiring of the Electoral Commission. And we need to have a stringent process where people have success models that we go by when people come in, so that they go by specifically that. And when you have a Public Services Commission who's employed to do that, who's independent, they make sure that happens. And then you strip away the power from, of course, the president. The way you do that is once you get in as a president.
The time's up. Mr. Carlo Morgan, same question to you, 1 minute. How would you fashion out a governance system that avoids nepotism in favor of merit and inclusion?
Thank you so much. I am of the opinion that the 1992 Constitution has given so much power to the president. He appoints tons of people. And naturally, when you have such a power, you would like to bring your closest family. The temptation is so high. When I'm president, I'm going to review the Constitution, expunge the indemnity clauses, and these are things that we are talking about. I will propose that we have a president and who appoints a prime minister to run a government all over the place. That is what we know. In the French-speaking countries around us, we have that. So the power of the president will be limited to some extent. So when that is done, you make sure you bring people of high caliber. Meritocracy should be the order of the day. No matter what. If your brother is qualified, he goes on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Onipayedo Osumtai, same question to you, sir.
Hello. Okay, what I'll do is, I think when you read the Constitution, in Article 78, there are two offices. The Constitution created two offices, the legislature and then the executives. But Article 78 gives away that a legislature, the executive, which the president is supposed to take more of the cabinet ministers, the ministers from legislatures. So one person is having in two offices. I think that's the reason why we are facing this kind of nepotism. So what I'll do is, I'll amend Article 78. So it separates the legislatures from the executives. I think that will help. This is my point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Onipayedo Osumtai. This round ends on this question to Mr. Marik Kofi Gan. Same question. How would you dismantle the system and make it meritorious?
I can't say anything different from our manifesto, which is now public. One of the things we have said in that document is that even though the president has the power to appoint as many as the Constitution allows him to, one of the things that I have decided that we will do is to set up committees. It could be standing committees, it could be permanent committees, but committees that involve people from all walks of life, the professional sectors, the the judiciary itself, and other elements of our society to put out names to the president, hopefully from Ghanaians home and abroad, to ensure that we break down that element of the president having to choose everybody that he knows. For me, this is a balance between the president choosing and the people of Ghana choosing.
Thank you very much. I would go now to Zoom and attempt to bring in once more Dr. Thomas Sise. Dr. Thomas Sise, if you had a question, how would you fashion out a governance system that avoids nepotism in favor of merit and inclusion?
So it does appear we do not have Dr. Thomas Sise at this point. So we'll start the second round with you, Mr. Kofi Kranting, if we're ready.
Before we do that, I want you have 30 seconds for rebuttals if anybody wants to take advantage of that. On this same question, before we move to the second round of questions, you have the floor. Rebuttals on the first question of demolishing nepotism in favor of merit and inclusion. Absolutely. You kindly put on the microphone.
It's on.
Yes.
Oh, okay, here we go. So again, like I was saying, so what you do is you're going to have a success model. The success model has to be followed. You have a public service commission that holds everybody to this success model. The president cannot come around this public service commission to make decisions as to who to pick. You have a success model, you follow it. If you don't meet it, you don't get in. And then when anybody goes outside of the public service commission guidelines to hire somebody, they pay the consequences.
30 seconds is up. Anybody else want to take advantage of this? 30 seconds too for a rebuttal. If not, I have a question, quick follow-up. So again to you, Mr. Marek Kofi Gan, you say you're going to set up a committee and they will be responsible for presenting a list to the president to select from. You run a campaign. Campaigns are very expensive. There are individuals who would put in money into your campaign. And as they say, there's no free lunch. What's your policy going to be for those individuals who will run your campaign, especially in a country where we don't have the rules governing political party campaign financing isn't watertight, who will come round after you've been elected and demand favors, including putting their friends and others in positions of power?
I did start by saying that this is a balance game that we're playing, and so there has to be balance. One of the things I want to say very quickly is that there is a balance between what I have said I will do in terms of putting up a committee and people who we already have identified who are professionals who qualify themselves to be put in certain positions. And so there's so many positions to get filled. I am saying there has to be a balance between those I bring on board and those that the Ghanaians choose.
Same question, follow-up question to Mrs. Amofuri Ampofo. You started this off and you said you run a minimum governance. I think what you meant, if you clarify what that means exactly, when you said you run a minimum governance, just to quote you, what exactly do you mean by that?
Thank you very much. What I mean by that is, as we all know right now, the MPP government runs a government of about 120 or 10 or 15 ministers. I am going to run a government that will appoint only 40 ministers. By appointing 40 ministers, we're going to save over 200.
Finish.
We're going to save over 250 million cedis.
Okay. Thank you very much.
So a quick follow-up to you, Onipaide Osumte. So if you say you are amending Article 78, what exactly are you hoping to achieve with that?
I mean to achieve from... Okay. What I'll achieve from amending Article 78, it will make the legislature autonomous. That there is not going to be a conflict in their services. So at least the legislatures are mandated to take control over the powers of the executives. Now the Article 78 fold their arms down they cannot perform well to be able to.
Well, you've been bailed out. Let's go on to the second round. We'll have a two-pronged question on this one. I'll start with you, Mr. Kofi Kranting. And it says, since 1992, Ghana has seen increasingly bloated governments and an oversized bureaucracy. What specific current ministries, departments, and agencies would you do away with, and why?
Okay, so we coming in with a very skin-tight government. We have 10 ministries, okay? 10 ministries, going to be agriculture, energy, employment and entrepreneurial development, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Ministry of Health, Interior, Trade and Industry, and Ministry of Justice. 10, that's it. And the reason why we need to do that is because we're going to run a tight government. More doesn't give you effectiveness. Effectiveness is what gives you effectiveness. And because we're coming in with a science-based, data-driven, human-centered government, we know exactly what needs to be done. And Ghana does not. With 30 million people, we don't need more than 10 ministries to run Ghana.
Well, to you, Mr. Caleb Morgan, which specific current ministries, departments, and agencies would you do away with?
Which type of ministry that I would do away with them?
Exactly. Which specific current ministries, the ones we have now, you do away with, and why?
Okay. I can assure you that most of the ministries that were created in this government was actually frivolous. They were job for the boys. We have our real ministries that run our affairs since independence. Sometimes we align some of them to make a lean government. And this is exactly what I would do. Sanitation, which ministry is doing practically nothing. They had a budget of 200 million dissipated, and the country is full of filth. Zongo development, this all should go under the Ministry of Rural Government and so on. So for me, these are all jobs for the boys. Many others, at the First House or Jubilee House, there are so many government appointees that should be kicked out, and they are just a drain on the economy. I'll do just that.
Onipa and Osumte, which specific current ministries, departments, and agencies would you do away with, and why?
I think all the departments are important. But what I'll do is, you see that they split the department. A Ministry of Railways, Transport needs to come under one umbrella. So I think what I'll do is, I'll narrow the departments to fit in. I can take like road, aviation, and then transport to make it under one department, rather than splitting it, ministry of this, ministry of that. That's what I'll do. Thank you.
Mr. Mariko Figan, your turn.
Just to continue from what the others have, I do want to add the Ministry of Railways to the Ministry of Transport. I do believe that the Ministry of Sanitation is irrelevant. I do believe that there are various youth employment and related agencies that have been put together now, which actually should be coming under the Ministry of Youth and Sports. There are other elements within the various, the Office of the Special Prosecutor does not make sense to me, because I feel we have all the judiciary related agencies to deal with everything that that department deals with. I do not believe that the Office of the Senior Minister has any role to play in this country, and many, many more related ones. But I'll leave it for that.
Mr. Samuel Oforiampofo.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I wouldn't be able to stand right here to tell you that this particular ministry or that particular ministry will be absorbed into, compressed into the lean government that I'm talking about. But I will initially appoint a committee that will advise me on the various ministries. Right now we have about 120 ministries or ministers, or 110 ministers. They're all ministries, and therefore all other ministries that cannot be funded by state will be absorbed into 40, absorbed and make 40 ministries. And also, all other agencies whose functions overlap the other, like IOCO, BNI, and all the rest, will be consolidated.
You've been bailed out. I'll give Dr. Thomas Sisi another opportunity again via Zoom to take the same question. If you can hear me, then I'm asking what specific current ministries, departments, and agencies you do away with and why.
Ministries I'm going to do away with. A good leader doesn't do that openly because it's not healthy. But I'm going to run. I'm going to run a 25-minister kind of government. You see, when I get there, then we know the kind of ministries we need to. We don't need to do away with them. We need to shift them to another areas. They should be directors instead of ministers. You see, I'm going to use a method called CICI, and that is common sense, intelligence, conscientiousness, and integrity. Those are the criteria that my government is going to use to determine those who are going to work with me. You see, that is what is needed. And secondly, too, you see, it is necessary we understand that before you vie for the presidency, there must be the 4 guiding principles that you the candidate have, and that is going to help you. That is going to help you to understand what you are about to do, how to handle the affairs of your government.
Thank you, Mr. Sisi. You've been bailed out. Unfortunately, you've been bailed out. Thank you. So we'll take the quick round. I told you I had a 2-pronged question. I'll still start with you, Mr. Kofi Kranting. It's still on the same issue. But what 3 skills will you look out for in choosing your cabinet?
Okay, so we have an Office of Supervisory Jurisdiction, and they're going to set strict guidelines, which is going to be called the minimal acceptable requirements for every minister to have to go through that orientation and make sure they cut the sod. We're not going to be like the NDC and MPP and have all their friends, their grandmothers come in and have a job. That's not what's going to happen. There's going to be a serious business for a country who's ready to make a move into bigness and be able to compete at a national level.
3 skills, Caleb Morgan, that you would require in choosing your members of cabinet.
For me, the foremost is meritocracy. Merit, what you can do, no matter where you're coming from and what your background. Even you were the only person who supported my campaign, and you are not fit to be a minister of finance, I will not put you there whatsoever. So meritocracy, first of all, and also your ability intellectually, and how you fit the ministry that we want to put you there. And first and foremost, a combination of female and regional balance will be the key.
Thank you very much, Caleb Morgan. What 3 skills will you look out for in choosing your cabinet?
Okay, what I'll look at it first is competence. I think before I choose my cabinet, I make sure that those that I choose may be able to respect the rules and then go by, in which I think rule of law will be my first objective. That at least a cabinet minister may not be on the road or may not be anywhere and then just...
Thank you very much. Mary Kofigan.
Problem-solving skills. Attention to detail and results-oriented person, and of course, I want somebody who understands how the world works.
Thank you very much. Samuel Ofuyampofu.
Thank you very much. Meritocracy is the bottom line, and I wouldn't want to put anybody in a position where he doesn't understand anything at all about the functions of that particular ministry. I am not going to hire a lawyer to a position of Minister of Roads and Highways who doesn't understand anything about roads, who doesn't know about how to design, how to approve of whether the road was properly constructed or not. And so the bottom line is I'm not going to put square pegs in round holes.
Thank you very much. Dr. Thomas Sise, your turn now. 3 skills you look out for in choosing your cabinet.
Okay.
Do we have Dr. Thomas Sise? Okay. It doesn't look like Dr. Thomas Sise is with us. But Dr. Thomas Sise, can you hear us now? Well, we'll try and rectify that with him. But listening to all of you, it looks like sanitation ministry is something you are hoping to do away with. How then are you hoping to deal with the filth in the country? Mr. Morgan, you were heavy on that.
Thank you so much. By saying that I'm going to get away with the sanitation ministry, I have a program that I'm going to roll out, and that will be sanitation and road and safety brigade. I'm going to bring up young men and women who will be in all the districts and regions across the country. It will be a new form of a brigade trained to do the sanitation. A group will do the sanitation, others will do the road and safety programs, including a center, a regional center, district center, for all these things to be coordinated. The fire service will be there, the nurses, the anesthesia, all these groups will be there to attend to emergencies in the district. With the towing truck and so on, all ready for any emergency. They will be set for everything in the district and in the regions. That's what I'm going to do.
Just to indicate that this is rebuttals and follow-ups, and so 30 seconds very strictly. Mr. Morgan, so all that you said, it won't be under any ministry. You said it will be coordinated, but not by any ministry.
Can you bring the
all that you've described in dealing with sanitation just right now?
Yes.
You said you would do away with the sanitation ministry. So all that you've described, who will coordinate this? Which would it be under any ministry?
No, not under ministry. It's an agency. Okay. It's going to be an agency under the office of the president, because I pay special attention to this thing. I'll make sure I get a report from the district, from the regions, every other week to be abreast of what is happening.
Mario Kofigan, you also made the same point that it is needless to have a sanitation ministry. Same question, what would you have instead to deal with the filth?
I mean, the filth is a result of the absence of the infrastructure to deal with the filth. So there's 2 ways we're considering this. To have the whole issue of sanitation under the Ministry of Infrastructure or under the Ministry of Health, because, you know, the essence of the whole infrastructure is that if it doesn't happen, you get filth. If filth is there, you get people getting sick, they get back into the health cycle, and it's a cycle. So it's either under health or the Ministry of Infrastructure.
30 seconds still for rebuttals if anybody wants to pick up on that. You, Mr. Carbo Morgan and Mr. Mike Kofi, can afford to utilize your 30 seconds, and so the other 4 candidates, if you want to utilize the rebuttals, you are allowed to.
So a couple of things. So number 1, we're going to do underground systems for sewer and sanitation. Underground systems, we're going to penalize merchants who use receptacles that are non-biodegradable. And then for sure, it's going to be a standard for anyone who's selling anything, plastic, whatever you use has to be biodegradable.
Thank you very much.
Sanitation will definitely be a major part of our national life. It is very, very important because it's the cleanliness of the country that makes us sick or healthy. We spend so much money on drugs, fighting cholera and fever and all the rest, and it's all about poor sanitation in the country. We need to focus more attention on sanitation, and I will recommend that we build incinerators that will burn most of our...
So do you, for clarity, do you disagree then with Mr. Calebo Morgan, Mr. Michael Figan, that we should do away with the sanitation ministry?
Not necessarily doing away with the ministry, but just like Morgan said, it has to be an agency, but that agency must be also under a particular ministry, and so health therefore will have to control the sanitation department.
Okay, thank you very much. So the substantive next round questions now, and this is on corruption. And I will start with you, Caleb Morgan. While many anti-corruption strategies have been introduced over the years, they have mostly failed to yield results as evidenced by various corruption perception indices. A dominant source of grand corruption is our procurement system. How would you design a procurement system that removes opportunities for procurement breaches?
Thank you so much. I am of the view that institutional corruption has permeated our society. It's not only the procurement system is a subset of the problem that we're facing as a nation. I want to tackle the systemic corruption in the country, institutional corruption, where, how do you call it, people go there for services, and that is where we see the most of the corruption. Procurement is a major issue that we need corrupt-free people. We need to appoint those who are tested and known to be corrupt-free to put them there, and make sure the system of bringing friends and relatives, as we know, through the back door and approve their orders through the
Thank you very much. Mr. Untitled Chapter.
Hello. What I tend to do is, I think procurement is just part of corruption. Corruption goes beyond procurement. And what I will tend to do when I want to fight corruption is, we need to redefine corruption. At least if you redefine corruption, you understand that even as a public servant, if someone misleads you, it's part of corruption. So after that, what we have to know again is, politicians are just builders of corruption. The designers of corruption are the electorates. So corruption started from campaign time. So what I have to do is, I'll make sure the state sponsors election campaign for candidates, not political party. And this, in my assessment, it will cost the state 16,000 Ghana cedis to sponsor all the campaigns of independent or political candidates. Thank you.
Mr. Mario Kofi Gan.
Yes, there are three things we intend to do. One of them is to amend some of the laws, my specific one being that which states that if the supplier of the service or product is, I can't remember the exact law, but if the supplier of the service or product to the country is also financing the procurement process, then the approval of that doesn't need to go through Parliament. That needs to change. The other thing we want to do is to ensure that in certain aspects of our ministries that we do introduce some form of blockchains technology. And then finally, we do and have already designed a process of ensuring that value for money applies to every decision that is made for spending. And so there is a framework that ensures that for every procurement that is made, there is justification for financial purposes, there's justification for the commercial value of the process, and there's justification for the strategic nature of the process.
Mr. Sambofori-Ampofo.
Yes, since we all know that procurement has been the bane to our corruption issues, I'm going to set up a procurement department under the executive, and everything that has to be purchased will have to go through competitive bidding, and all the bids will have to go through three checks under the presidency, and the final determination will rest on the president, me as the president. And before anything is purchased, I will have to scrutinize to make sure that the very particular item went through competitive bidding, and that will be it.
Mr. Kofi Kranti.
Yes, sir. So a couple of things. So we're going to have a very high moral and ethical standard embedded in the MARs. The MARs are the minimal acceptable requirements inside the requirements that, of course, the ministers or the people who take agency heads come in with. And then once we have that, then we're going to have 3 layers. We're going to have the institutional infrastructure, which is the structure, the fiscal structure. Then we're going to have the systems set up on top of the institutional structures. Then we're going to have a distributor ledger technology running these things, so it can have an algorithm so that every transaction will spit off an algorithm at different locations, and you can't duplicate this algorithm. And because of that, you cannot move anything, because it would date stamp, time stamp everything you do, and nobody will be able to change anything. We're going to be totally paperless in terms of money and transactions.
Let's take the rebuttals for 30 seconds now. I see Mr. Carl Morgan's hand up. Mr. Carl Morgan?
Yes, what I had wanted to say until I was bailed out, was that I'm going to keep an office in the president's office, an officer or a team of officers in charge of procurement, and at a certain threshold, I'm going to give an order for a threshold that could be treated at the procurement office, the general office. Above that threshold must come to the presidency's office, where the team will evaluate it and see who.
What threshold? What is the threshold?
Sorry, the threshold will be decided, maybe $10 million or $20 million or CDs or so. We are still planning in our.
Okay. Anybody else? Mrs. Onipaye Osumtay?
Yeah, I think earlier on I mentioned this a wrong figure. It is 16,000 Ghana cedis. What I tend to do with that money is we need to do a regional-based debate like what we are doing, but this is going to be based on policies rather than question and answers in 16 regions. So that is what I tend to do, to move election campaign from the platforms to debate centers.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So you mean that the 16,000 will be allocated for campaigning or for the election debate? What exactly would it be for? 16,000?
No. I said it was wrong figure then. It's 160,000.
160,000.
Yeah, 160,000.
Okay, so I'm interested in finding out what your redefinition of corruption will be, because you mentioned that you will have to redefine corruption. Define it for us.
Yeah, what I think is happening is now elections supposed to be free and fair. The electorate must go and vote free before we have fair results. So if the electorate start demanding to influence their vote, then it means they are selling their vote, and we are not going to get a fair result. So when we move campaigns from the platforms to a debate centers, it will reduce the intake of money. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Ampofo, you also mentioned that you have 3 checks at the presidency, and you will be the final authority to approve these procurements that you've talked about. Would that not give you too much powers as a presidency? Would that not lead to abuse of office?
Absolutely not. There will be a chief of staff. There definitely will be 2 people that will be responsible for procurement. To sanction, to go through the competitive bids and make sure that it is really true and truly competitive. And that's all. It's not just going to be done by me. The 2 people will just make sure.
Thank you very much. We'll go to our substantive round now. We're done with rebuttal.
He has a standing rebuttal.
Okay,
yeah.
you can take it.
Again, we're going to have an office set up called the Office of Supervisory Jurisdiction, work in tandem with the Office of Director of Public Prosecutions on a zero-tolerance approach to corruption. So you fall in line, you're out of here. It's as simple as that. So
we've heard zero tolerance for corruption before. To be very specific, it was a slogan that was introduced by former President John Kufuor. The question is, why should we believe that this slogan that you used, that we've heard before, will this time yield results? That obviously the question suggests we haven't found.
Well, because Evans, if you take a look at the structure, the way we're coming in with an office of the director of public prosecutions, whose sole responsibility is set up to prosecute. We don't have a toothless vegetarian special prosecutor who the NDC MPP spend millions on, who don't do anything. We're going to have a director of public prosecutions who just prosecutes anything that's criminal. It doesn't go through anywhere. It just their job to do. So it's a totally different consciousness.
Finally, Mr. Abel Morgan, you mentioned that you will be appointing corrupt-free persons. How are you able to tell that someone is corrupt-free?
What I will do is that there are certain institutions in this country that we know they are very, very corruption infested. We know, and I'm going to dissolve certain.
Like which ones?
What?
Like which ones?
If you push me to the wall, I will say dead and buried registry. For me, it's the most corrupt infested institution in the country. I'm going to dissolve the institution, put in new staff, those who have not had any touch with the corrupt practices. I'll get them. And there are so many around. You will be one.
Thank you very much, Mr. Carl Abel Morgan.